All right, so welcome everyone to the this first part of our session, which is going to be a little bit of a tutorial. Actually, we're going to learn two things. One is that we're going to learn how to take screenshots because that's going to be important for the class. And then in addition, I'm going to give a bit of a tour of this wonderful site online that has a lot of suttas that we can read called SuttaCentral. So starting with the ability to do screenshots, I'm going to share my screen. That's for the class that's coming up. So the next slide shows taking screenshots. And this is a way that you can capture what's on the screen. So if you're on a PC, you'll have a Windows key, which looks like a little window, and then a print screen button. And if you hold down the Windows key and hit print screen, it will save what's on the screen to the folder named here, pictures/screenshots. If you're on a Mac, it's Command-Shift-3, and the screenshot will get saved to your desktop. There are other options, like if you do Command-Shift-4, you can choose things, which part of the screen you want to save, but those are the basic ways. And then if those are not useful to you, you can just take your phone and take a picture of the screen. So that's something you can do on a computer. Now, if you're on the phone, of course, you'll have to have another way to do it. So if you're on an Android phone, there are two different ways: power and volume down, or just hold the power, and sometimes one of the options on the menu that pops up is to select a screenshot. Or on an iPhone, it's the side button and the volume up button, and then you release them, and then it will take a screenshot, and the thumbnail of it will appear on the screen. Now, since we're recording, all of this is being recorded, and you'll be able to look up the video later. But there will be maybe moments during today when it's useful to be able to take a screenshot. Or if that's really not working, you can literally just take a pen and write down the key information on a piece of paper. But do remember the thing about taking a photo with your phone. That's often the easiest. Okay, so I would like to go on then to the main part of this section, which is to look at SuttaCentral. So that is going to be here. Chrome, so here it is. Okay, can you guys see SuttaCentral on my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Okay, great. So this is a wonderful site. It's SuttaCentral.net, as you can see up here. And you can, it works on all browsers as far as I know. It's a very, very well designed site. And I just want to highlight the key features and then take us to a sutta to show you how you get there. But before we even look at the suttas, there's actually very nice navigation and things that are available here on this main page. So I'm going to be scrolling down, so you'll see on your screen following along. If you look down, first of all, there's a very nice quote of the day that you'll see a different one each day, and you can read the sutta that it comes from if you want. But if you get down to this section, what's here? This introduction, I recommend clicking on and reading. It has an introduction to the site, and also it has a lot of background about Buddhism, which is really helpful. And then where to begin, this is going to tell you how to navigate the site if you want. And it has some external links on it also to supportive things. There's really actually way more here. You could spend hours just reading all the introductory material, but I just want to point you toward what it is. If you go a little farther down, there's a very nice video. It's only 2 minutes, so I recommend watching this video. It has a little bit of the vision of the site. And then I'm going down even farther on the main front page. And it has the 3 different, what's called the Tipitaka, which are the 3 baskets that we've inherited of these original teachings. And the 3 baskets are listed here. You can't quite see all of them at once. Well, yeah, you can actually. So the discourses, which are the suttas, the monastic law, which is called the Vinaya, and the Abhidhamma, which are some more systematic teachings about how the mind operates. And each of these comes with this little more button, and you can read about the background of those and kind of an overview of what each of those is. So that's really helpful. And then even farther down, there are these things called guides, a reader's guide to the Pali Suttas. So when you're thinking about getting into the reading, the guides give kind of a general overview of how the suttas came to being. And then they also give a general overview of each of the Nikayas. So I'm actually going to click on that one to show you that. So a reader's guide to the Pali Sutta. So it has a general guide about how to read. And then you see it, looking on this menu, long, middle, linked, and numbered are each of our 4 main types of sutta collections. And we're going to see more of that later. So you can also read about the background to the long discourses. What are they? Why are they called that? How was this book organized? And you can read that for each of those. These are long pages, so this can keep you busy for a while. But I like that it's all there, and you can just do it at your leisure. You're not expected to do it at all for this class on the liberating teachings of the Buddha that we're going to be doing, but it's there for your information. And then these indexes and terminology are also interesting because there's a lot of language that sounds unusual. It doesn't use modern English words always, and there's sort of a specialized vocabulary. So these indexes give you indexes of the subjects, of the names. This is kind of cool. Index of names that appear in the suttas. So first of all, there's an alphabetical thing, but Prince Abhaya, the monk named Abhibhuta, the private Buddha named Achyuta. How many names do you hear? And they all kind of sound the same in this ancient Indian language. You can go look them up here and find out who these people are. And these references are suttas where they appear. So you can click on that and get to the sutta. We won't do that right now. So that's kind of cool. Similes, if you want to look up, what was that simile about the ox cart? You might be able to find it on the simile index. So now I've scrolled back, and I'm back on the main page. So this is all available from that very front page. I'm now going to slowly scroll back up to the very top of the SuttaCentral page. And I want to point out just a couple other things here before we go to the suttas. The first is these 3 little dots in the corner. You see my cursor going up there. When I click on that, it opens a menu. Sorry, I have to move the pictures out of the way. That offers various options. Some of them are useful and interesting, like languages is kind of interesting to click on. It shows the distribution, like how many suttas have been translated into English, into German, into Chinese, into Japanese, information about the languages. You may want to read about this is more technical information now for the site, so it's getting more specialized. The methodology, how did this site come about? And some of the numbering of the suttas, these are a little bit more technical. So then that maybe brings us to this question of what is SuttaCentral. Now that we've started to see everything that's on here, there can be a feeling like, wow, what is all that? Like, what was the purpose of bringing all this together? So the aim of SuttaCentral is still ongoing project, actually. It is to bring together all the ancient extant, that is known, texts of the Buddhist discourses and link them to their parallels in other traditions and other translations, and also to be a place where the translations of these are collated. So that's why I mentioned English, German. We'll look later at which languages are available on given suttas. So this is a massive catalog project to bring together in a way that has never, literally never been possible until we had the internet, these ancient teachings. The most modern technology and the most ancient teachings of wisdom brought together in this place. The vision behind this, the person behind this, is a monk named Bhikkhu Sujato, who is an Australian monk. And he has a monastery in Australia. And you can look up about him online. Also, Bhikkhu Sujato did a day-long for the Sati Center last fall in October, and that is on Audio Dharma. If you want to look up the teachings that he gave that day, he talked about the project of translating the suttas, because he has done a lot of the translations on this site. Although there are links to other English translations, such as those by Bhikkhu Bodhi and so forth. So SuttaCentral is an amazing project, and it's still ongoing, but there's quite a bit here already. And I just have a tremendous amount of respect for bringing together these teachings in a way that makes it accessible, really. And that's why I feel motivated to help people and empower people to use this site and really connect with these ancient discourses that are so relevant still in our modern life. So then, one more thing I want to show you on this page before we go to the suttas is there's this little search bar. You see, if you click on it, you get a thing where you can type in a search word. I have to say, though, that I've experimented a lot with this because I tend to think that search is like a Google search where I just put something in and I'll get a whole bunch of stuff that's, probably exactly what I want, plus a bunch of stuff that's not. But it turns out this search, as far as I can tell, is really designed to do research on this site. It seems to search only the text of the suttas. So for example, I can't type in Satipatthana Sutta and it gives me, middle length 10. It doesn't do that. So you have to, if you want to type in though a certain topic, like if you want to learn about concentration, you could type concentration and it will search in any sutta that has concentration, or at least where the word concentration has been used as the translation word, will come up there. You get a lot of results. I've used it fruitfully, but just don't be frustrated if you're trying to use it to search for a given sutta. There are other ways for doing that. But anyway, and then one more thing I want to mention on this little menu is that this is a donation-based project. And if you feel moved to contribute, you're welcome to do so. There's also, by the way, at the very bottom here, this thing called Discuss. There's a whole parallel section of discussion forum about this. It's getting really geeky. So, but if you're interested, there are people talking about the site and navigation and translation and all kinds of things if you want to connect with those folks. Okay. All of this is on the video, so if I'm going quickly, it's okay. So now I want to take us to the suttas. That is all done with this little 3 bars in the upper left corner. You see how when I get close to that, it says menu. So if I click on that, it opens the menu of SuttaCentral, which at the top level has what? The 3 baskets, the sutta, the vinaya, and the abhidhamma. Remember the things that were down below, the 3 different sections, the discourses, the monastic rules and laws, and the abhidhamma. So those are here, and these little arrows are going to expand each of these sections. So we're really going to deal with the sutta section, but I'm going to show you all of them right now. If I click on that, it expands out into the subsections, the long discourses, the middle, the linked, which is the Samyutta Nikaya or connected discourses, the numbered discourses, the minor discourses, and then others. So these are these top 5 are the main 5, what are called Nikayas in the Buddhist tradition. And these are, if I click on long, well, actually, let's click on middle. So this is interesting too, because look what appears. The first thing that appears, don't worry if these words look unfamiliar, is Majjhima Nikaya. You may have heard that word. It's the one that's abbreviated MN. This is in the Pali tradition. PLI stands for Pali. Again, you don't really have to know these abbreviations, although those indexes do give you all the abbreviations if you're concerned about that. But look, there's also this thing called Madhyama Agama. What is that? That, LZH is Chinese, by the way, classical Chinese. That is the parallel discourse to the Majjhima Nikaya that is found in Chinese translation. You don't have to know this for this class or even in general, but I just want you to be aware what this site is trying to do. So the Pali discourses that we have, where did we get them? You know, they come through a long tradition of oral tradition, and then they were written down and copied and passed along starting from about 500 years after the oral tradition started immediately, and then they were written down about 500 years later. And that has passed through into this text called the Majjhima Nikaya. But scholars discovered that there's a very similar text in Chinese. And it turns out it was an early version of the Majjhima Nikaya was when it was still being transmitted in India, in that area, somebody got it and took it to China and translated it. So it was probably a monk, a scholar, you know, there was a lot of exchange going on in that time of the world. And so we now have, and the Madhyama Agama also survived. There's a lot of texts that didn't survive. So this is a text that's similar to the Majjhima Nikaya. It has a lot of the same discourses, but some different ones, and it's found in Chinese. What's the use of this text? I can't read it, it's in Chinese. Of course, I think there is an English translation now of some of it. Bhikkhu Analayo did that. So it's interesting because we can then look at text in the Majjhima Nikaya, and then we can look at the Agama parallel and see how similar is that. How sure are we that this is what the text actually said? So that was a little more detail than I really wanted to go into on that. But when you see these ones, the top one in Pali is really what we're going to be concerned with, because that's the tradition that we're in. So if I click on that, I then get the 3 sections of the Majjhima Nikaya. And again, if these words look really unfamiliar, don't worry about it. I'm going to navigate in a moment to a sutta, but I want to go back now and just give a quick overview of these others. So if you're interested, you can look at the other sections of the Pali Canon. We almost never look at them, but the Vinaya, there's a lot of Vinayas. The Theravada Vinaya, again, this is biased toward the Theravada. Bhikkhu Sujatu is in the Theravada tradition. The Pali always appears first. So the Theravada Vinaya is what, for example, Ajahn Sujatu follows, and also the monks at Abhayagiri, other monks and nuns, and the nuns will follow, of course, the Bhikkhuni rules as opposed to the Bhikkhu rules. So this is the subsections of the Theravada Vinaya. Bunch of other Vinayas. The 3 major ones are the Theravada, the Dharmaguptaka, and the Mula Sarvastivada. We have some fragments in others. So that's the Vinaya. You can look at it at your leisure. The Abhidhamma. Again, there's a bunch of versions of these higher teachings. They were very popular to be translated into Chinese, Tibetan. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of different versions of these higher, so-called higher psychological teachings. And again, we're not really going to go into them. There's 7 books of them in the Theravada. Actually, not all of them have been translated. This is interesting, right? The Dhatu Kata of the Theravada Abhidhamma, there's nothing to click on here. It is not translated into English. So you can read it in Pali, but only these other ones, like the first and the last in particular, the Dhammasangani and the Patana, have been well translated into English. So, you know, this is still an incomplete study. We're still working on reading the whole Pali Canon. And most of the commentaries to these have not been translated into English. So we have the original text and then we have commentaries. Yeah, so maybe I'll stop at this point and let me actually put up one more thing for you so that you can have a chance to see that. It's on a different screen. Let me, actually, if I do this, can you now see my PowerPoint? Are you seeing that? No, okay. So I have to stop sharing and then share the PowerPoint that I wanted to show you. Okay, so there's the screenshots again, but I want to show you that on SuttaCentral, this would be a great time for a screenshot or a picture of the screen. I'm going to need this information for when I give you the text to read. So this is how you're going to locate suttas. Remember, I clicked on the thing that came down. Oh, let me go. Yeah. So DN, MN, SN, AN, those are the sort of classic ways that a sutta will be labeled. Like, for example, the Satipatthana Sutta is MN10. So that means Majjhima Nikaya 10. So these are the things that will help you navigate on SuttaCentral when I give you references to suttas. If I give you Dhammapada, DHP, you need to look under the one called Minor, and then Khuddaka Nikaya, and then you'll find the Dhammapada. The Sutta Nipata, the Udana, these are the Therigatha and Therigatha, and the Itivuddhaka. So these are the only things I'm ever going to reference in this upcoming class that we're doing, even though there are other ones. And so please keep this page. Of course, it's on the video also. It's here, it's not going away, but if you can take a screenshot or otherwise write it down, that would be helpful. Okay. So now I want to go back to SuttaCentral. Okay. Do you see SuttaCentral again? Yes. Okay, good. So let's look up a sutta. Let's look up the discourse on the mindfulness of breathing, the Anapanasati Sutta. It's a very common, well-loved, wonderful sutta. Its reference is MN 118. So that is where MN is the middle length discourses. That was on that prior screen that I showed. So we click on that. Of the different middle discourses that we have, we want, of course, the Pali version, the Majjhima Nikaya. So when I click on this, it's going to take me to another screen. These are the three major sections of the Majjhima Nikaya. And now you might be stopped. Well, I don't know what any of those are. Don't worry, they're linear. You know, they're just, it happens that the Majjhima Nikaya has about 150 discourses. So these are sets of 50, roughly. So where do we think 118 is going to be? Probably the second. But if you didn't know that, it doesn't matter. Actually, it's not. It's in the third. Sorry. So, but if you didn't know that, it doesn't matter because, you know, I clicked on the second and I said, oops, 118 is not there. By the way, all these buttons, you just click them and click them again, and they go up and down, appear and disappear. So this last section looks like 118 is going to be here between 111 and 120, right? So then you click on that. And the way the suttas are given is on these little cards. Here's, for example, we're in the 111 to 120 section, so here's 111. So I'm going to need to scroll down if I want to find the Anapanasati Sutta. Well, look at that. MN 118, Mindfulness of Breathing, the Anapanasati Sutta. So this is called a sutta card. And I want to orient you now to what's on the card. Okay, so this card has a lot of wonderful, fun little things that you can explore on your own. But this is, you know, the title. It has a little description for, you know, just like a summary. And then you get, there are two English translations, one by Bhikkhu Sujato, the creator of this site, and one by Bhikkhu Bodhi, which will be, of course, the same one that's in the written book that Bhikkhu Bodhi translated. 25 translations in other modern languages. So that's pretty interesting. This is a popular one. I'm going to click on that so that you can be amazed like I am. Look at the options. If you want to read it in Bengali, in German, Spanish, French, I'm not sure what that is, Indonesian, Italian, Burmese, Dutch, Norwegian, Polish, Portuguese, wow, right? Vietnamese, Swedish. So there's a lot of ways you can read this sutta. This gives the translation, by the way, the translator. So Michael Beisert translated it into Portuguese in 2014. Okay, I'm going to close that one again because, and then this addition of the root text, that gives the Pali. So if I click on that, it shows that what we're reading is the Mahasangiti version, which is from the 6th Council in Burma from the 20th century. So that will be the Pali version that's offered here. And then we're going to look at the Pali in a second when I look at Bhikkhu Sujato's translation. And then 19 parallels in ancient texts. So now you're getting into the geeky nature of this site. Look at this, MN 118 has parallels in a lot of other ones. So I don't know what all these refer to, but the fact that it has Chinese characters, this was probably the Madhyama Agama parallel in the Chinese. It has a parallel in the Samyukta Agama also, apparently. Various other, it has references actually in other suttas in the Pali. That's true, the mindfulness of breathing instructions are given in a lot of other places. And then there are certain sections, like sections 8 through 13 are repeated in some of these other ones. So I'm not really going to go into great detail on this. But this, if you were doing research, it would be interesting to know the parallels to this particular sutta. Now, for most of what we're doing, we're just going to be looking at the English translation. You know, we're just going to pick one of these and read it. Before I do that, I'm going to orient you to these other things on here. This little leaf indicates that it's recommended for intermediate students, which is kind of cool. It's like a little icon. There's also, I found on this page, this one with a tree, recommended for advanced students. So you're a tree by then, and here we're like a little sproutling or something. So that's good. If you click on this, you can listen to the sutta being read in both Pali and English. It's very nice. They do line by line Pali and then English. So it's a good way to learn to hear Pali if you're interested. So that's how it would look. Because then I want to go also to the sutta. So you see, I'm going to click on the English translation by Bhikkhu Sujato. And I currently, this is what you'll probably see when you click on it. So you get the mindfulness of breathing. Here's the sutta. You know, you can read it. This is where you would want to get if I've given you a reference to read for our class on Monday. There's a few things to orient on this page. The settings are the most important. So if I click on that, I get a little box. Do you see the box? You do, okay. So on the settings, I have it set to view textual information because that gives volume and page references and variant readings and so forth. So that's kind of handy to have turned on. You just click it and it turns on. Active Pali word lookup, I do that. I'll show you on my screen how that works, Pali to English, because I'm interested in Pali. I'm learning Pali. So you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I don't think you want Chinese word lookup. You can read the Pali text in other scripts. That's not useful to us because we all read English. But this is the one that I want to point to. View original text with translation. So in certain cases, Bhikkhu Sujato allows you to see the Pali and the English side by side. So I actually keep mine set like that because I think it's really cool. You don't have to. You can just read the English. So I'm going to close this. Look at this, mindfulness of breathing, Anapanasati Sutta. Thus have I heard, Evang me sutang. So you can read the Pali, and if you see that things appearing as I scroll over this, Evang, so in this way, like this. So thus have I heard. I don't know if you see that when I scroll over it. Hopefully you do. So you can't quite learn Pali this way because the grammar is too hard. You know, there's things that are in different forms, like pub arame, for example, is in a certain case. It's in the locative case, and you would never know that. You can't know that by looking at the translation of the word. So the grammar is completely obscured. You won't be able to understand it, but you can start to learn some words. And so what I like about this is it just shows you sort of line by line. Often I read this way so that I can understand the key words. I know enough Pali to know what the key words are that are, you know, if I want to say, what in the world is he using as the word for, I don't know, well, Sabbath, okay. So that's going to be here somewhere. Thought it would have Uposita. Anyway, doesn't matter. So you go through and you find, what word is he using for some of these particular phrases. That can be helpful. So this, and then these little references, SC, SuttaCentral segment number. So SuttaCentral segment number 3.1, for example. So this is going to be handy for me in the class because I'm going to tell you to read sometimes just certain sections. Okay. So I think we're at the end of kind of the tutorial. This is giving you everything that you need in terms of navigating SuttaCentral in order to find the teachings and understand what the purpose of the site is and all the amazing resources that are available on it. I just love that this stuff used to really only be accessible to scholars and really to monastics, who were doing heavy study of the text. And I certainly don't expect that lay people are going to be doing that, but it's available. It's there if you want to get into it, if you want to learn a little bit more. So thank you for sitting through all of that. Are there any questions at this point? I'm going to stop sharing because it's hard for me to see your questions if I don't do that. Bruce.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious to know if you've come to any conclusions about the two translations, Bhikkhu Bodhi versus Sujato. Or any preferences or any characteristics of the two?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because another point, in fact, you've brought up another point I should make, which is that different translations are going to be really different. And sometimes you read it and you think, whoa, this sounds really strange. And then you read another one and you think, oh, that sounds nice. And so then the mind says, oh, I like this one better. I'm just going to read this one. And that's something to watch. But translation is an art. And, and every time you translate a text, you're actually in a way making a new text. It's an interpretation of that text because Pali and English are different. I am, of course, biased toward liking Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations simply because but I know it's because I'm the most familiar with them. That's what I started reading first. Bhikkhu Sujato's translations he makes an attempt to use very modern English, and they have some sort of casual language in them sometimes, which is okay. But I have to admit that sometimes I feel like I don't understand clearly why he chose a certain word. So I'm still learning to navigate his particular way of seeing the suttas. It helped me to listen to his session that he gave for Sati Center. I got more of a sense of him as a person and why he might have thought certain things in certain ways. But as always, that's part of our study, is to read the texts and take them in and somehow get past the filter of the language to what the text is pointing to in our practice and our heart. But it is also an art for us as practitioners and readers to navigate the translation that we're working with. Great question, thank you.
Thanks.
Val, you're muted.
Okay, if we have the textbook, the books, can we use the books if we'd rather than using them online, than doing online?
Absolutely, you can use, if you happen to have the books, please use those. Jill.
This is not actually a question. I just looked up a photo of Ajahn Sujato because I remember him being at Abhayagiri. And it appears that there are two different Ajahns, according to the pictures. Yes.
Okay, so you want the Australian one.
Right, I can tell which is which.
Right. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. There's two Ajahn Sujatos, just like there's two Carols on this call. Mm-hmm. So, it happens. So this is the fellow from Australia. Yeah. All right. I'm inclined to kind of wind up this section then and say thank you for listening to all that. It's probably more than you bargained for in just an hour session. Are there beginning ones? What's the icon of seed? Probably. I didn't look carefully, Abby, for the beginner suttas. I think they're all beginner suttas, actually. we never get beyond that. Where are the books available online? You can buy any of the major texts. Like here, for example, is the Majjhima Nikaya. This is the Bhikkhu Bodhi version, the middle length discourses of the Buddha by Wisdom Publications. And almost all of them are available. So that's good. All right. Thank you for indulging my sutta geekness. And this video will be available. I'm going to stop this recording.